Welcome to Inside British Royals. This is your exclusive look inside the world's most famous family. We are exploring the scandals, secrets, and power plays that define the modern monarchy. If you are new here, please do well to hit that subscribe button for more updates. As King Charles led the royal family in the most important gathering since his accession, two familiar faces were conspicuously absent. On a day designed to showcase the unity and strength of the modern monarchy, the seats reserved for Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie remained empty. While the palace stayed silent, urgent questions were being asked across the globe. Was this a simple scheduling conflict, a private matter that unfortunately clashed with a public duty? Or was it a sign of a much deeper crisis, a calculated move in a royal chess game with impossibly high stakes? The real reason for their sudden disappearance from the royal stage is a story the palace doesn't want told. A story directly tied to their father, Prince Andrew's disgrace and the scandal that continues to rock the monarchy to its very core. The Commonwealth Day service, held on March 9, 2026, was never going to be just another date in the royal calendar. It was meticulously planned to be a powerful statement. Inside the hallowed walls of Westminster Abbey, 1,800 guests gathered for an event themed around the strength of collaboration, a message the king was keen to project. This was more than a service. It was a strategic projection of stability and forward-looking optimism. The world saw King Charles and Queen Camilla, flanked by the Prince and Princess of Wales, a solid, dependable core. They were joined by Princess Anne and other senior working royals, each playing their part in a carefully choreographed display of continuity. This was, as many commentators noted, the most united showing from the family in the difficult days following Prince Andrew's arrest. It was also the first time King Charles and his heir, Prince William, had appeared together in public during this specific period of crisis, a clear signal that the direct line of succession was unshaken. Against this backdrop of managed perfection, the absence of Beatrice and Eugenie wasn't just noticeable, it was deafening. It created a visual vacuum, an unspoken question mark in the middle of a declarative sentence. These aren't minor, distant royals. They're the king's nieces, princesses of the blood, and familiar figures at major state occasions. In recent years, they've been seen as reliable, uncontroversial members of the wider family, often stepping in to support events and charities. Their absence felt deliberate, a stark contrast to the event's theme of unity and collaboration. It immediately sparked a firestorm of speculation, because in the silent language of royal protocol, a non-appearance of this magnitude is rarely an accident. It begs the question, in a moment when the monarchy desperately needed to present a full and unbroken front, why would two of its most recognizable members be missing in action? The answer doesn't lie in their diaries, but in the catastrophic scandal that had finally and irrevocably engulfed their father. To understand why Beatrice and Eugenie were absent from that service, we've got to rewind just 1 month. The event that triggered this crisis wasn't a subtle palace rumor, but a seismic shockwave: the arrest of their father, Prince Andrew, on his 66th birthday. The arrest, directly connected to his well-documented and disastrous ties to the late convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein, was the moment the monarchy had dreaded for years. This wasn't a reopening of old wounds. It was the detonation of a bomb that had been ticking for over a decade. The fallout was immediate and ruthless, a clear indication of just how catastrophic the palace considered the situation. In a move of unprecedented speed and severity, King Charles, the brother who had reportedly stood by Andrew for years, acted with the cold decisiveness of a monarch protecting his throne. Andrew was already stripped of most of what defined his royal existence years ago. His military titles and royal patronages were gone, and his status as His Royal Highness formally revoked back in 2022. But this arrest solidified his complete and total excommunication from public life, orchestrated by his own family. Perhaps most symbolically, he was to be removed from his lifelong home, Royal Lodge, the sprawling Windsor residence that had been his sanctuary and power base. This wasn't a slap on the wrist. This was a total removal. The king's actions sent an unambiguous message. The firm was cutting its losses, and Andrew was now a liability too great to bear. This decisive action was taken against the backdrop of an even more terrifying development: the renewed scrutiny and ongoing revelations connected to the Epstein case. For the palace, this was a nightmare of epic proportions, an uncontainable flood of information that could, and did, drag members of the world's most famous family into its toxic narrative. Suddenly, the crisis wasn't just about Andrew's past conduct. It was about who else could be implicated, however tangentially. The arrest and the renewed focus on past disclosures together created one of the gravest crises to strike the House of Windsor in modern history, a firestorm that made past scandals pale in comparison. And caught right in the middle of this inferno were his two daughters. For Beatrice and Eugenie, the nightmare became deeply personal. As the world's media revisited the Epstein case, names associated with him inevitably re-emerged. Reports and past allegations, often fueled by the public record, suggested that the princesses had, at a young age, accompanied their mother, Sarah Ferguson, to a meeting that included Jeffrey Epstein shortly after his initial release from prison for his first sex offense conviction. It's a devastating allegation by association, placing them in the orbit of a convicted predator at a time when the world was being told he was a social pariah. It is absolutely critical to state the facts here with clarity. Beatrice and Eugenie were just 19 and 21 years old at the time of this alleged meeting. They were young women, accompanying their mother. There is no suggestion, not a shred of evidence, that either of the princesses has ever committed any crime or been involved in any wrongdoing whatsoever. But in the court of public opinion, context is often the first casualty. Their names were now inextricably linked. This is the impossible situation the sisters now find themselves in. They're undeniably caught in the crossfire of their parents' scandals. They face truly untenable choices. Do they publicly stand by their disgraced father and risk being permanently cast out of the royal fold? Or do they distance themselves from him to protect their own futures, a move that would be seen by some as a painful but necessary betrayal? This isn't just about public perception. It's a deeply personal family tragedy playing out on the world stage. They're trapped between their loyalty to a father they have always publicly supported and the institution to which they belong by birth. The mention of their names in connection to the Epstein case meant that every public appearance would now be viewed through the lens of this scandal. Every smile would be scrutinized, every public statement analyzed for hidden meaning. They were no longer just princesses. They were the daughters of an arrested man, their own histories now subject to intense and uncomfortable review. This is what makes their absence from Commonwealth Day so significant. It wasn't a simple decision. Just imagine, not too long ago, at a private family gathering, Beatrice and Eugenie might have been notably present, offering a show of family unity. That kind of appearance can be seen as a personal gesture of support, a sign that while their father was out, they were still in. It's a moment where the monarch can show that his love and duty as an uncle can be separated from his role as the head of state dealing with a crisis. Christmas, for instance, is often a family affair, a private gathering where the embrace of family can be visibly demonstrated. Commonwealth Day was entirely different. It wasn't a family gathering, it was an act of state. It was a global broadcast, a diplomatic event where the image of the monarchy is a crucial tool of soft power. Their presence at a private family event is about personal family bonds. Their potential presence at Westminster Abbey is about institutional branding. The palace, and likely the king himself, had to make a brutal calculation. If Beatrice and Eugenie attended the service, the narrative would be irrevocably hijacked. The media focus would have shifted instantly from the king's address and the celebration of the Commonwealth to the daughters of the disgraced duke. Every camera lens would be trained on their faces. Every headline would scream about the Epstein scandal. The story would become Andrew's daughters attend major royal event amid father's arrest, completely overshadowing the carefully curated message of unity and collaboration. Therefore, their absence was almost certainly a strategic sacrifice. It was a painful but necessary decision made to protect the institution and, most importantly, to protect the king's authority during a precarious time. They were likely asked to stay away, or made the difficult decision themselves to prevent their personal tragedy from becoming a public relations disaster for the crown. It wasn't a snub from the king, but a reflection of the cold, hard reality of their new situation. On that day, their duty to the monarchy wasn't to be seen, but to be invisible. By staying home, they performed their most difficult royal duty to date, falling on their own swords to shield the king from a scandal that wasn't of their making. They absorbed the blow, taking on the speculation about their absence in order to preserve the dignity of the occasion. With their father's royal life over, and talks of further unprecedented steps like removing him from the line of succession sometimes floated, the future for Beatrice and Eugenie is fraught with uncertainty. The very foundation of their positions has been shaken. Constitutionally, their birthrights appear to be secure. Experts in UK constitutional law generally agree that it's highly likely only Andrew himself, if anyone, would be removed from the line of succession. Their places, which they hold in their own right, should remain unchanged. This provides a crucial legal anchor in a sea of uncertainty. They can't be erased from the royal lineage. However, a place in the line of succession is very different from having a role within the family. The question now is whether they can ever have a meaningful public life as members of the royal family. Can they continue their charity work, attend state banquets, and stand on the Buckingham Palace balcony? Or will they be permanently relegated to the shadows, a constant, uncomfortable reminder of a scandal the monarchy is desperate to forget? They're walking a tightrope. Every step they take will be judged. If they're seen to be too close to their parents, they risk being condemned by association. If they're seen to be too distant, they risk being seen as disloyal. Many royal watchers suggest the sisters will have to create even more visible distance from their parents, perhaps while still supporting them privately. This is the difficult duality they must now inhabit: public separation for institutional survival and private loyalty for family cohesion. They may have to forge a new path entirely, one that is further removed from the central workings of the monarchy than they ever imagined. Their future roles may be significantly diminished, not as a punishment, but as a practical consequence of the reputational damage caused by their father. They are, in essence, collateral damage in a war the palace is waging to secure its own survival. In the end, the empty seats at the Commonwealth Day service were a symbol of a painful truth. The absence of Beatrice and Eugenie wasn't a snub or a scheduling error. It was a calculated and necessary sacrifice to shield King Charles and the crown from the raging fire of the Epstein scandal, a fire started by their own father. They stepped back so the monarchy could move forward. But this leads to the most pressing question of all. Can Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie ever truly carve out a meaningful royal role for themselves? Or will they forever be defined by the sins of their father? What do you think the palace should do now? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more in-depth analysis that gets to the heart of what's really happening inside the royal family, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications.